Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's New with Me. I'm Ali Mehdaoui. Today, we are unpacking one of the most consequential development in global geopolitics of the decade, the capture and U.S. court appearance of Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro and his wife Cilia Flores, the interim leadership in Caracas, and international legal implication under the UN Charter, and of course, the global reaction, including President Trump's stance on the broader legal fallout. So, what happened? Court appearance in New York. On January 5th, Nicolás Maduro, the former president of Venezuela, appeared in federal courtrooms in Manhattan after being captured by U.S. forces in a military operation inside Venezuela. His wife, Cilia Flores, was captured alongside him and also appeared before the judge. Both pleaded not guilty to a multi-count U.S. indictment that includes narcotics trafficking, narco-terrorism, conspiracy to import cocaine, and other related offenses. Maduro, speaking directly to the judge, insisted, "I'm innocent. I'm not guilty. I'm a decent man, and I'm still president of my country." He labeled his apprehension as kidnapping. His defense team plans to argue that he enjoys head of state immunity and that the operation that brought him was illegally executed. The legal context in the U.S. courts. So the charges against Maduro and Flores stem from a long-running U.S. indictment tied to alleged systemic drug trafficking involving the so-called Cartel of the Suns, which U.S. authorities have designated as a terrorist group tied to senior Venezuelan officials. Under U.S. law, the federal court has jurisdictions to try foreign nationals, including foreign government officials, for violations of U.S. criminal statutes like narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, and conspiracy. However, the central legal controversy is not about the indictment itself, but about how Maduro was brought to the United States soil, international law, and the U.S. military operation. So here is where international law becomes critical. The United Nations Charter, the foundation of modern international legal order, prohibits the use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, except in very narrow circumstances, self-defense or UN Security Council authorization. In this case, there was no UN Council and there was no resolution authorizing force. Venezuela did not invite U.S. military forces into its territory. The Trump administration has framed the operation in part as law enforcement and in part as transition mission with broader political implications. Legal experts widely question the legality of the operation under the UN Charter, stating that criminal charges alone do not justify the use of military force against a sovereign state. Professor Ben Saul, a UN expert on terrorism and human rights, stated, "The use of force here violates the most sacred rule of international law, the near century-old ban on the use of military force against another country." Similarly, commentary from Chatham House's legal scholars concluded that the capture of a sitting president and subsequent U.S. strikes constitutes a violation of Venezuelan sovereignty and the UN Charter. While the United States maintained this was a legitimate law enforcement action, international legal institutions typically do not recognize criminal indictments as a basis for crossing borders with military force. Acting presidents and constitutional claims in Venezuela. Back in Caracas, Venezuela's Supreme Tribunal of Justice and National Assembly vested interim power in Delcy Rodriguez, who was sworn in as an acting president following Maduro's capture. Under Venezuelan law, specifically statutes governing the transition to democracy, the head of National Assembly becomes acting president if the presidency is constitutionally vacant. Rodriguez has publicly stated she seeks balanced and respectful engagement with the United States, a notable shift towards diplomacy. However, her legitimacy is still contested. The Venezuelan constitution has been deeply polarized since 2019 with competing claims to presidential authority. Maduro's supporters consider his capture as an illegal overthrow. President Trump's position and the U.S. policy. So President Trump has framed the operation as part of a broader strategy against narco-terrorism and authoritarian regime. In a statement following the capture, the president asserted that the United States would run Venezuela temporarily, oversee the transition, and help reactivate oil production. Language that carries both political and legal implications. This dual framing, law enforcement versus regime transition and control, complicates the U.S. legal position. United States constitutional law experts note that military action without congressional authorization and without clear self-defense justification raises serious legal questions domestically and internationally. Global reaction and international law commentary. So the international reaction to this unprecedented event has been intense and varied. United Nations officials have warned against eroding the rule of international law and emphasized peaceful resolution. European leaders are calling on the U.S. to justify its actions within the framework of international law. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said, "It's up to the United States to explain the legality of what they did." Observers have noted historical parallels to the 1989 Noriega capture, but point out the U.S. lacks consent from Venezuela's authorities and Security Council backing. So what comes next? In the coming weeks, Maduro and Flores return to court March 17th for further proceedings. Legal teams will likely escalate arguments over sovereign immunity and illegal capture. International scrutiny of U.S. compliance with the UN Charter will intensify, and Venezuela's political scene remains deeply unstable, with competing claims to authority and ongoing humanitarian concerns. So, this matter sits in the intersection of criminal justice, international law, and geopolitics. The fallout, legal, diplomatic, and strategic, is just the beginning. We will continue to monitor developments as they unfold, and we'll keep you posted. So that's all for today's deep dive on what's new with ME. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe for more comprehensive analysis on the stories that are shaping up our world. And visit themestudios.net for all of your media needs. We'll see you next time.
Still marketing your business like it's the Yellow Pages era? Welcome to ME Studios, where local solopreneurs and small business owners catch up with the digital world and take over it. We help you go from invisible to undeniable. Featured on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Plus, gain press exposure in over 100 to 300 major media outlets like Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC, and the CW. Right here in Eatontown, New Jersey, just steps away from the soon-to-be Netflix studios, our multi-unit facility is built for creators, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Stop marketing like it's 1995. Start building your digital authority today with a team that gets it.